recovered from those opening lows. This is closing trades right here in ET now. But again, we're off the day's highs as well. So while we're latching on to the green, it's just about 37 points higher for the Nifty futures, above the 24,400 mark. However, Hero MotoCorp, Axis, Shriram, Hindalco, Infosys are your big winners in trade. But then again, there's pressure in from Adani Ports, Adani Enterprises, SBI, M&M, L&T, and to some degree Reliance and TCS as well. Talking about the Adani group of stocks, while they too have recovered from those opening cracks that they started off the day with, still not out of the woods. A large part of the correction and the damage is behind us. But yeah, still skirting in the red as we speak right now. Sun TV, of course, reacting quite drastically to its numbers, down 10% as we speak right now. There's Balkrishna Industries, a huge crack of about 7% coming in. There's Astral, which is down nearly 5%. Zydus Life, which is down 4.5% as we speak. There you go, Balkrishna Industries lower by 7.25%. Astral down 4.5%. Zydus Life down 4.5%. Nalco also down by about a good 3.5% as we speak right now. And then post those numbers and brokerage upgrades, Jubilant FoodWorks, that's one stock which has really been on a tear from the word go and now sitting at the day's highs. It's almost a 9% gain that the stock is now sitting on. And then Voltas, which is also looking very, very strong indeed. It's on its way to an 11% gain mark in trade as we speak right now. Inox Wind being the other one, which is holding up 16% as we speak right now. Anisha, hi, afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, and it does look like it's turning out to be a better afternoon, at least versus where we started off the week with. So those three good earnings for you on the screen. Definitely great momentum on the likes of Voltas, Jubilant Foods, as well as Inox Wind. What's weak, as Aisha also pointed out, is Astral, which is down 10% in the trading session. Sun TV is coming under pressure, and then Balkrishna Industries. Those are the slew of reds that we are watching out for. Sectorally speaking, it's Realty, which has bounced back. In fact, Realty was the only sector that was holding on to gains. Metals has bounced back very sharply. So when we started off the day, metals were the worst performers. They've actually moved into the green right now. And then, of course, you have IT, etc. as well to watch out for. It is a truncated week, so a bit of a breather there. But CPI data is expected today evening, so we are watching out for that. It's expected to cool off quite substantially, so watching out for all of those internals. But to discuss it further, I have with me Ms. Soni Patnaik, Naresh Mirani joining us on the show to talk to us more about the technicals of the markets as well, and Deepak Shenoy on the fundamentals. First up, let me begin by asking you, Naresh, what do you make of the market mood right now? We have recovered pretty much all the lost ground. All that Hindenburg saga didn't really have any impact on the markets. Does this seem like an indication that the worst is over?
So that's an indication there is no impact of the Hindenburg report, etc. But we are still in a consolidation mode. 24,000, 24,200 on the downside, 24,600 to 24,750 on the upside. So this should be the range going forward. Only when we start getting out of this range, then we get a 500, 700 pointer directional move. So in this period of time, time to be more defensive, because in a consolidation, we need to wait for new trends coming up. So sectorally, we are starting to see pharma as well as diagnostics and some names coming up onto our radar. But overall, still in a consolidation for the index.
Consolidation for the index. But Deepak, what do you make of some of these good earnings? Voltas, well, we knew that it's going to be a very strong quarter given the heat wave, but the company clearly has surprised us further. And Jubilant FoodWorks, wherein overall the like-for-like growth was just 3%, but what has got the street excited is perhaps that the decline has been arrested and now a turnaround is in store. Any comments on some of these urban discretionary plays?
I haven't seen Voltas results, Anisha. I think there is I mean, it's interesting because you had a heat wave and India needs a lot more ACs. The fact that even a 28% GST doesn't deter them is good. But I think at some point we'll kind of realize this, saying that, we can't have, heat waves like this hurt our population that much. There are countries that are hotter but have just a lot more air conditioning. So that way, I think positive about the long-term future. We haven't got the stock in our portfolio, but the whole space is interesting. For Jubilant, it's a relatively expensive stock. So I think even with the earnings that has come in, or with the change in this, I think I would say it just remains a little bit out of our radar by saying we can't. If this valuations were falling to about 30 or 35 times earnings in 5 or 6 years, I don't think this would be a meaningful return for investment from here, despite seeing that the scope of growth is quite good. I don't see them growing 50 to 70% for CAGR from here for the next 5 or 6 years. So not really interested in Jubilant Foods per se.
Okay, that's the take coming in on Voltas as well as Jubilant Foodworks. In the meantime, Sony, hi, afternoon. Let me get you in as well. Does it seem like this recovery is sustainable? It was a sharp knee-jerk reaction and then that got covered into, but does it look sustainable to you?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for having me on the show. I think Nifty, irrespective of whatever the news were over the weekend, on Friday it had given a decent close. And any move above 24,350, it was indicating that it can head towards 500, 550 odd levels. Just shy away from that 24,500. Today we saw 24,470. So I think that that could be a bit of a crucial resistance to cross right now for Nifty. If it's not able to cross, you may see a bit of a profit booking again to back to test the lower support levels of 24,200, 250 odd levels. I think this is how it's playing out right now. It's in a consolidation mode, for broadly speaking. Likewise for Bank Nifty as well, we can see, it had an expected short covering move above 50,200 towards 50,800 or so levels. But right now it may see some resistance towards that 50,800 to 51,000. I think that's where, it's holding out a bit of a call writing. We can see the addition still taking place. So it's important for both of these indices to cross that level to see any further upside. On any downside, it may only get its recent support tested. So it's not a lot of panic either from current levels. Maybe a buy and dip strategy would work out better for both the indices.
Buy on dips. Let's see whether we get those dips or not. But Amara Raja is one stock which is firing away. Not to forget the fact that the stock has run up quite considerably this year. Let's pull up the year-to-date chart, and that will tell you the kind of big move that it has seen already this year. Deepak, what would you do with this stock if you've missed out on the rally and not bought into, let's say, the Exide and Amaras of the world? Better to just stay aside and not participate at least at the current levels?
So we own Amar Raja, so not very unhappy about the move. We've owned it for a while now. But I would still say look at this as a pretty interesting play in a game-changing area. You're looking at batteries becoming one of the most important parts of a car, rather than just one small 7 or 10,000 rupee kind of, or even a 5,000 rupee kind of element inside a car. You're going to see it being a substantial portion of a cost of a car. And if you have the network that Amar Raja has, and so does Exide, for instance, and there's also the OEM links that they have or they're building, plus they're moving into EV in a slightly different but better way. I would say long term this bodes well for us. In the short term, markets can be very volatile and very punishing, especially if the broad markets fall. So I'd say if you have a 5-year horizon, you might want to look at this stock as buying in small pieces over a longer period. That's exactly what we've done. We've been buying for the last I think 2 years plus on this stock. So that would be the best way to play it, not to say that today's investment and let's look 3 months from now. It's a longer term story. It'll evolve over time.
Deepak, what are the other additions that you've made recently? Anything new that you've either added or looking at?
We've not really decided on additions yet. We're still, there's some results waiting to come in, but much of our larger plays we continue to be excited about. I think LIC itself, one of our largest plays. Next year onwards, we're going to see some increase in revenue from in the fourth quarter, because their share of participating policies increases from 7.5% to 10%. I think so. There's that will kind of adjust, and plus they have increased their non-participating policy share to 25%. They were at 10% a year back. So that way, I think continue to build on that position. We haven't added a whole lot more. In fact, in the run up in the last few months, we've actually cut down some of the public sector shares that we've owned, primarily because they got too big. So some of the RVNLs and maybe a Mazgaon dock, because positionally they've become too high. But we're waiting to deploy cash. There's very little cash, but that the deployment is for a new stock hasn't yet happened in this quarter. Hopefully next time I'll have something better to update.
Okay, we'll wait by to hear where do you deploy next, because perhaps a dip is imminent and that is when you will buy perhaps those stocks for which you have the shopping list ready. But for now, the market has conquered that mark of 24,400 quite swiftly, and we are holding above that mark, at least at the moment. We are talking about how some of the public sector entities have come off quite meaningfully. Amara Raja, of course, is holding up, and in fact, Inox Wind as well, doing quite well. Let's listen into a slice of the conversation, because we managed to speak with both the managements, Amara Raja as well as Inox Wind, right there in the premises of these companies. Here are what the managements had to tell us.
We have publicly stated our vision is to get to 2 gigs. Without specifying timelines, I think it's in the near future that we're going to get there. Obviously, depending on how large the Indian market becomes, if it's going to be closer to 10 gigawatts, which we think it should be by 2027, I think we'll take a larger chunk. We have the what I would call, we have the right to win. Our break-even costs today are negative. Along with our O&M business, even if I sell 0 megawatts, I make money. I'm not saying we won't sell megawatts. We're gunning for such massive numbers now that effectively I'm probably the last man standing in the industry. And I think that's been true even when the industry went through hell. We're probably the only player which survived with 0 haircut to any banker or creditor. I think on the Inox Green side, it's a natural play of Inox Wind as well. We have stated in the next 3 to 4 years, we want to make it a 10 gigawatt play. Frankly, I think we should be doing it much earlier than that. We're evaluating a lot more opportunities, not just O&M now. Because the canvas within O&M is limited in terms of what we can acquire in the market. Organically, we're growing so rapidly, and we're looking at virtually all the inorganic pieces available in the market.
The first gigafactory production at the moment, we're looking at the end of 2026 to come into the market. It's going to be approximately 2 gigawatt hour of NMC capacity, followed shortly thereafter by about 46 gigawatt hour of LFP. Overall, about 1,500, 2,000 crore, largely going to be covered by internal accruals.
Okay.
From day one, we're pretty clear that phase one, let's do internally. Let's not really look at any alternate funding, because we think we can do this, and that we don't want to really open the books unnecessarily right now. But going forward, it's about almost 10,000 crores of investment. That's more in this next 5 years than we spent in the last 40 years as a group. So the risks are higher, the amounts are higher. There's a lot of options, whether it's equity, debt, IPO. I think everything's on the table, but we'll exercise those options as we get there.
Welcome back. A lot of stocks which are reacting at the moment right now. You of course have on the gaining side Inox Wind up 19%. Rail Vikas Nigam has shot up quite nicely as well. Titagar Wagons is the other one that we are watching out for, and BKG, Glenmark Life, HFCL, these are some of the other gainers in the trading session. On the losing side, Birla Corp, KFin Technologies is finally cooling down a bit, and Bharat Dynamics of course has been under pressure. But we are watching out for the latest news flow that we are picking up. So my colleague Prakash had talked about how Oil India and ONGC have reached out to the ministry to take back the windfall tax. And on the other hand, there's also the news coming in that allocation of gas produced from new wells, well intervention at 20% premium over the APM price. That's the word coming in as far as ONGC is concerned. The stock has shot up quite considerably, but let me take it across to Somit to understand what exactly does it mean. Somit, we understand this text that we have got, the single line, but what exactly is the implication for ONGC as well as the gas users?
Well, if you see this announcement, ONGC management was expecting this announcement to come in anywhere in mid FY25, but it has come in a bit earlier than what they were expecting. Now, currently, if you see gas prices in India for the domestically produced gas is fixed at around 10% of crude prices, which means that if crude is trading at around $80 per barrel, then the domestic gas prices would be around 10% of that. But there's an upper cap of around $6.5 per MMBTU. However, whatever gas ONGC will produce from the new wells, they can charge a premium of nearly 20% over and above the currently charged APM gas prices. So if the APM gas price is around $6.5 per MMBTU, a 20% premium can be charged for gas which have been produced from this new wells. Now for FY25, if you see the incremental contribution to the EBITDA could be very less at around just 1 to 2% upside as per analysts. But for FY26, nearly 20% of the total gas production expected by ONGC is expected to come in from this new well. So a higher EBITDA number can be expected from ONGC in FY26 because the contribution of new wells for gas production in FY26 will be much higher at around 20% as compared to a lower number that we are expecting for FY25. So all in all, it's a positive announcement. Though it is on expected line, it has come in a bit earlier than what the management was expecting, and obviously this will boost up the company's FY26 EBITDA significantly as per analysts. But also do remember that this will be negative for city gas distribution companies because they source in this domestically produced gas for supplying gas to CNG and for domestic PNG purpose. Now CNG is the most profitable segment for any city gas distribution company, and if they're not able to take a price hike and pass on this increase in gas cost to consumers, then definitely their margins will take an impact going forward.
For that, for now, the stocks, that is the city gas distribution names, are also holding in the green despite that increase that might come for their intake or the input for them. Not sure if they're going to pass it on or not, but ONGC is the stock that we need to talk about because that's seen quite a bit of spike. So the announcement coming earlier than expected, of course, would have been a boost for FY26 earnings as it is. Now FY25 also gets a larger boost, and that's the reason that stock has shot up suddenly 3.5% right now. In fact, while we're talking about the energy names, let me take it across to Prakash as well because he also has picked up some interesting story out there. Prakash, tell us what you have picked up from your sources.
Yes, we are learning from our sources that the Oil Ministry has approached the Ministry of Finance regarding windfall gains tax. We are given to understand that the Oil Ministry has asked for the withdrawal of the windfall gains tax on petroleum products. In fact, several presentations have been made in the Finance Ministry, and the Oil Ministry is now recommending for its immediate withdrawal on back of reduction in crude prices. Crude prices have been below $80 per barrel hovering within a range bound for quite some time. Therefore, Oil Ministry is now requesting for the withdrawal of windfall gains taxes. In fact, it also believes that the crude price is likely to go further down. Along with that, it has also made 3 to 4 rounds of presentation to the Finance Ministry on the impact of windfall gains tax on the investment of oil producers. And the Oil Ministry is also of the view that the oil companies are not making any windfall gains if the prices are below $80 per barrel. Therefore, these recommendations have been made. And if it happens and the government decides to withdraw windfall gains taxes on petroleum products, that is going to help to the companies like ONGC and OIL. As you are aware that the Finance Ministry has revised the windfall gains tax on petroleum products to rupees $2,400 per ton effective from August 1. But the government has not been levying windfall gains tax on export of ATF, petrol and diesel for last few months. And therefore, these recommendations have been made. In fact, the sources are confirming that the Finance Ministry is considering this proposal, but it has given no timeline for the withdrawal of windfall gains tax.
Okay, that's all that there is in oil and gas. Deepak, curious to know whether you caught on to ONGC on time or not. Quite a few triggers in place now.
No, not really. We are still long Reliance, so in that sense, we'll benefit if there's a reduction in windfall gains tax, but not the other one, which was the increase in tariff that they could do. I don't think that's going to be much of a reality, because in the end, if it means you and I have to pay more for our gas usage, it will add into inflation, and that is a political issue. So I don't think they will be able to translate it meaningfully. But the windfall gains tax has a bigger impact. So we don't have ONGC in at least the fundamental portfolios. It has been a part of our momentum portfolios, but that's more based on the prices rather than on fundamental action. So I don't think we would have missed it, but I'm sure you can't get all parts of a rally, so you'll get only maybe 30-40% of whatever big move there is.
Right. Naresh, so let's check in on the momentum. How much more to go from the 341 levels on ONGC?
So that would be a fresh new all-time high for the stock if it sustains about 345 mark. And overall, the trend is positive, so it could continue to catch up towards the 400 mark eventually. And if you look at what has happened with Oil India, that has outperformed in a meaningful way over the last 1 year. So ONGC has a lot to catch up. So technically, a strong breakout about 345 is possible in the short term.
Taken. So yes, Oil India this morning only we were discussing that CLSA has downgraded because the run-up has been quite sharp, and premium to ONGC has increased considerably, and we were wondering whether ONGC is going to catch up or Oil India is going to come off. Looks like it's ONGC which is going to catch up. But Sony, a lot of these real estate stocks are doing well in the trading session. Take a look at Mahindra Lifespace, suddenly managed to perk up. Lodha was doing quite well from the start of the trading session as well. Any fresh buys within this pack that you would recommend?
I think, from the entire space, we can see, look at Godrej Properties, which is looking strong. It has given a good breakout above 2900 in option chain. And going forward, it can test 2980, 3000 as a higher side of a mark. So I think from current levels, one can attempt to buy at a small risk of 2915 as a stop loss and keep a target of 2980 and a sustained second target of 3000.
Okay, point taken. So that's a view coming in as far as some of these stocks are concerned from the real estate pack. In terms of the other gainers, we are watching out for Inox Wind, as I talked about. Voltas has had a solid show. Titagar Wagons is the other one that we are watching out for. But insurance data is also out, and we had seen, of course, the general insurance data being quite good. But today, life insurance data also has come out. We know Deepak, of course, has his bias towards LIC. He's been holding it for a long time. So let me take it to Naresh and ask him, where is the bias when it comes to insurance stocks and even AMCs for that matter, because Nippon, etc. reported very sharp jump in AUM with respect to the AMFI data that came out Friday. Naresh?
So the bias would be on the HDFC names. If you look at HDFC Life, it's made a strong comeback over the last 2-3 months after going below 550 odd levels. The stock is now at almost a 1-year high. The all-time highs are around 750, 770. So that's the next upside. So on the insurance side, HDFC Life looks interesting. On the AMC side, again, it's HDFC AMC, which has been sideways around this 4,000, 4,200 mark for the last almost 3 to 6 months. All-time highs here as well. The last time the all-time highs were closer to 3,800 back in 2019-20. So out here, it would be a fresh breakout of 40 to 20 levels. So it looks like a breakout possibility going forward. So both the HDFC names looks interesting in insurance as well as AMC.
Right, okay, that's the take coming in on some of those insurance plays. Today, of course, you can't take your eyes off from a Voltas and a Jubilant Foods. They are the ones which are actually holding out very smartly. Amongst the large caps, we've discussed ONGC already. Hero Motocorp, Axis, Infi are the other ones which are also looking good. But Deepak, we'll let you go on that note. Thanks as always for taking the time out and joining in. Let me quickly get in some closing trading ideas as well. Sony, let's have your list, your closing trades.
So the first would be a buy in GAIL, which is looking good with long filter positions and a good breakout also, with one can attempt from current levels. So 235 is a level above which the breakout can happen. So one can accumulate at this level, and on 232, 233 is a level to buy GAIL. Keep a stop loss of 225, a target of 245 can be seen in GAIL. The second buy comes in Exide industry, which is looking about like it can, bounce back from current levels after a certain fall that we've seen in the particular stock. So any move over 505 can see short covering in Exide industries towards 520, 525 levels. So one can accumulate to buy at current levels, keep a stop loss of 488 and a target of 530.
Naresh, what about your closing trades? Anything specific that you are pointing out or looking interesting on the charts?
So that would be a buy on HDFC AMC, and the stock is making a flag formation very close to a breakout right now around this 4200 mark. The recent swing highs are around 4240. So expecting this to break out in the coming session. So that's a buy in the near term.
On that note, let's take a very quick break. So far, so okay, although we flattened out completely on the index. So let's figure out what direction the index takes in the next half hour.
Back with closing trades, and for now the market is holding out okay. We have seen a bit of a slip actually from where we were earlier, so we were just above that 24,400 mark. In the last 10 minutes or so, there is some weakness that has come into the market, and in fact we are staring at a red territory right now. Just taking stock of what's happening, it's NTPC which is down 2.5%, Dr. Reddy's, Britannia, Apollo Hospitals, these are some of the names which are in the red right now. Adani Ports too is trading with a bit of a red cut, given that entire Hindenburg report is having an impact. From the banking arena, it's SBI which is down in the trading session, and AU Small Finance Bank is the other one. So a bit of a pressure point for the markets at this point of time in terms of what's happening in the markets. But we have the MSCI rejig which is expected to happen tomorrow morning itself, and we'll get the data as to which are the stocks which are likely to see inflows as well as outflows. But my colleague Somit is joining us to talk to us about what the key expectations are. Somit, run us through the list of stocks that might be in focus on account of this MSCI rejig.
Well, if you see MSCI announcement for the August rejig is expected to come in tomorrow, that is August 13th, early morning. This will come out before the market opens, and most likely the stocks might react to this announcement. However, the inflows and outflows regarding the changes that are expected to come in the MSCI Global Standard Index would happen on August 30th. So few stocks that we need to keep an eye out for. Firstly, RVNL, Vodafone Idea and Dixon Tech. These companies are expected to see an inflow of anywhere between 215 to 275 million US dollars, which is nearly 1 to 4 times the 20-day average volume. Apart from that, it's Zydus Life, Oil India, Prestige Estates and Oracle Finance, which could see an inflow of anywhere between 160 to 185 million US dollars, which is nearly 2 to 7.5 times their 20-day average volume. Bandhan Bank is one stock that might get excluded from the MSCI Standard Index, and because of this exclusion, an outflow of close to 126 million US dollars is expected, which is nearly 2.4 times its 20-day average volume. And the key stock to watch out here would be HDFC Bank. Now, HDFC Bank's weightage in the MSCI Standard Index is expected to increase, and because of this increase in weightage, the inflows that are expected in HDFC Bank is nearly 3.5 billion US dollars, which is nearly 8 times its 20-day average volume. Now, the street has been expecting this increase in weightage for HDFC Bank, but the quantum is something that we need to track when the actual announcement comes in. So keep an eye out for all these stocks in trade, because the MSCI announcement is expected to come in August 13th early morning before the market opens.
Right, let's welcome on board Anand Tandon as well and figure out what he's making of the market right now. Anand, hi, afternoon. Good to have you on the show. Let's pick it up from what Somit was just flagging off. The flows that HDFC Bank is likely to get post the MSCI inclusion. Wanted to understand whether that could really resurrect the stock price movement, because since the Q1 update, we haven't seen much of a movement in the stock. In fact, if nothing, it gave up all of its previous gains, and it's been just lying quiet since.
Well, yes, I think overall the performance of HDFC Bank in the stock market has not been exceptional. And most of the gain that came was because they said that they had better margins, but that was only to be expected, because when you give away part of your corporate book, obviously the margins would increase. And that is what caused the margin increase, which meant that you also had a slower credit growth. In that context, I don't think significant change will happen. Yes, there is no doubt that fresh money can probably come into the stock, and therefore you may see some technical reasons for it to move up. But the performance still will take a while for it to reflect. There is the biggest positive, I think, in terms of private sector banks in general, is the fact that credit has been outpacing deposit growth. And given the fact that most of the private sector banks are better off than their public sector counterparts in terms of being able to create a valuable franchise on the liability side, it helps to have a good network, and HDFC is probably one of the best in that regard. But besides that, the challenges still remain. You still have a few more quarters of a weaker NIM. I think the biggest positive going for HDFC is the fact that it is not expensive compared to where it was on its historical basis, as well as where the rest of the market is. So from that perspective, I think private sector banks in general, including HDFC, are somewhat relatively cheap.
Relatively cheap, but don't come without their challenges. They do have some challenges which are lined up as well. But talking about tomorrow, you have, of course, the reaction coming in for the CPI and IIP numbers, which are expected later today evening. So the market will be reacting to those cues. But separately, we're expecting earnings from the likes of Hindalco, Hero Motocorp, Apollo Hospitals. So just keeping an eye out on some of those important cues that one needs to watch out for. In terms of listing, First Cry is going to list on the bourses tomorrow, aka Brainbees, and Unicommerce Solutions as well. So we're watching out for a couple of these IPO action in the trading session. Lock-in period ends for Capital Small Finance Bank as well as Raji Peripherals. Both had seen good amount of traction at the IPO time. Let's see whether there's any action tomorrow or not. And of course, CAS verdict on Vinesh Phogat's silver medal appeal is pending. So 13th August will be very important to track with respect to what happens to that. Do we at least get a silver medal or not? Is dependent on that meeting come tomorrow. In fact, there's also this GST Council update at the bottom of the screen, wherein the next meeting is expected to be on September 9th. Remember, the gaming stocks always come into focus whenever this chatter of a meeting is there as far as GST is concerned. So Nazara Tech, even Delta Corp for that matter, these are the stocks that usually react. So let's see whether there's a bit of a reaction to those names or not. Not really at the moment, and the market is also a bit volatile, so watching out for all of that. But since we're tracking earnings, of course, tomorrow Hero Motocorp will also come out with numbers. Let me take it across to Srishti to get an understanding as to what the expectation is, because overall the numbers so far from the two-wheeler pack have been actually quite okay. In fact, from the entire auto pack, the numbers have been decent. Anand, what's the view given the fact that rural recovery is expected to pick up? Hero is a great play on that, on the mass consumption. Do you think Hero could perhaps surprise us on the upside in this quarter as well as the coming quarters?
It's possible, but the fact of the matter is that Hero has been somewhat weaker in terms of being able to introduce new product lines, especially beyond their smallest vehicles, which are their bread and butter right now. And given their somewhat weaker R&D strength as well, they are still unable to penetrate much. They have been losing market share overall. Their attempt to get into EV is through another company, not their own. So in all of these things, they are probably the weakest among all the other two-wheeler manufacturers. That said, as you said, the fact is that the rural market revival may help them. Do remember that Bajaj has been trying very hard to increase the market of the 125cc and above. And slowly, if the rural demand does move in that direction, that could be another longer-term problem for Hero to deal with. In the near term, the pricing for the entire two-wheeler space is exceptionally high. I mean, given where we were, you have just about reached the volumes or not yet reached the volumes of 2019. Market caps of all these companies are multiples of what they were. And we have a new Ola Electric also in the market, which is also going to take away some of the some part of the market. So overall, market shares for all the companies have declined, and yet you are fine. All the earlier listed private listed companies have declined, and yet the market cap for all of them have gone up fairly dramatically. So even though there may be marginal uptake, I'm not sure that necessarily this is something that will witness be a major wealth creator in the near term.
Right. Well, the Adani group of stocks, they are the ones which have been in the limelight since the weekend, and they've shrugged off their opening jitters that they saw after the latest Hindenburg note. This after the SEBI chairperson clarified that the allegations were baseless and urged investors to remain calm. In fact, Sharad joins in with all the analysis on how the stocks have performed since morning.
Well, yes, the Adani group of stocks have recovered after actually coming up with a opening which was coming in the red. Now, interestingly, over the weekend itself, Hindenburg had come out with its report on SEBI chairperson,
and also on different companies. Now, of course, the clarifications have been coming in from SEBI chief as well as other important regulatory authorities as well. Now, also Adani Group had also refuted the claims made by Hindenburg. Now, interestingly, if you look at the overall recovery which has happened in Adani Group of stocks, they had started the day in the red, but there has been a strong recovery across the segments. Adani Enterprises recovering almost 5% from day's lows, Adani Energy, Adani Ports, and even Adani Power ranging a recovery of almost 5 to 11% from day's low. Also in the list is Adani Green Energy, Adani Total Gas, and even Ambuja Cement, where there has been a very strong recovery. So overall, Adani Group's stocks have recovered from the starting jitters which we had seen earlier in the day's trade.
Thanks so much for that, Sharath, for putting that into perspective. So yes, the stocks have recovered quite meaningfully and clearly shrugging off any concerns, if at all, coming in from that Hindenburg report over the weekend. But if I can come to you, Anand, on this matter, how would you, suggest and recommend investors to deal with issues like this going forward as well? Because entire weekend our WhatsApps were, completely, energized by all of these messages coming in with respect to Hindenburg, but then not really substantiated by evidence or facts.
I think this latest report is firing blanks. I mean, to say that, to insinuate really that someone who has a foreign fund investment, as if there is something wrong with that. I mean, what's wrong if both the SEBI chairperson as well as her spouse are very high earning professionals, have been working in the private sector for a very long time? It is not inconceivable that they would have moved some of the money out overseas and diversified a portfolio. And then to say that, the fund is actually invested in a company which is Adani. I mean, that's equivalent to saying that, because Adani, if you buy a Nifty ETF, you are also an investor in Adani, and therefore, you've done some kind of crime. So I'm not sure that this particular report has any truth, and to therefore conflate this with what has something to do with Adani. I think investors would be wasting their time on that. You have to take an independent view of whether or not the Adani Group has some corporate governance issues. And, you may have a view which is different from what SEBI has put out, but that is irrelevant in the context of the current report that has come out from Hindenburg. This one, I think they are kind of doing an overstretch.
That makes sense, and no wonder then the stocks recovered as soon as they did see that knee-jerk reaction. But let me take it across to Sharad and get the dealing room pulse as well and find out what are the stocks that are being talked about this afternoon. Sharad?
Well, yes, in focus is Ola Electric Mobility, and the company was recently listed. And what we are gathering from dealers is domestic institution buying is coming, and it's coming as a basket buy across mutual fund houses. Interestingly, 3.4 crore shares exchanged hands across 11 bunch trades in the day's trade, and the volumes they have picked up over the last 2 days. And of course, the listing happened 2 days ago. The IPO price was 76 rupees per share, and over the last 2 trading sessions, the stock is up almost 40%, 2 upper circuits of 20% each for both the days. Now, the key DIs already invested in the anchor book. They include the names such as SBI Mutual Fund and even HDFC Mutual Fund. Now, looking at the triggers ahead for Ola Electric Mobility, this includes the rise in EV penetration, the expected launch in the bike segment on 15th August, and the rest of the launches expected in FY25. Also, the focus would be going ahead would be in the cost reduction because of the Gen 3 platform and the phased expansion of their battery business. And also by early next year itself, the company had stated that they would be using their own batteries as well. So the dealer buzz is that DI buying is coming across Ola Electric Mobility.
After their listing, Bhavish Agarwal, the CMD, says that the company is going to be focusing on profitability going forward. Also talks about how they're slated for a big product launch come August 15th.
Our focus is on profitable growth. We are looking to continue to improve our profitability, in a pun intended way, a sustainable business built sustainably. So that is our focus, and we want to continue on that. We have this big product launch event coming up on 15th August. It's our annual event, and we do it on India's Independence Day, because we want to share all the vision and all the products and all the technology that we work on.
Okay, so clearly Ola is big buzz in the trading session right now, 20% higher, but Ansh is with us right now to talk to us about the price volume buzzers. Ansh, thanks so much for waiting by. Tell us which are the stocks that you're picking out.
Yes, so Jubilant Food will be the first stock in focus as the stock has given a good breakout from its upward sloping channel actually, and this is being backed by a heavy volume of around 8 times its average trading volume of last 20 session, indicating very strong participation in today's breakout. Also, the stock has touched 2-year high level as well. Apart from this, Voltas will be in focus as the stock has given a breakout from its horizontal resistance zone, which was around that 1540 mark, and this is being backed by volume of over 12 times its average volume of last 20 sessions. Lastly, Balkrishna Industries will be in focus as the stock has actually given a breakdown from its key support zone with volume of over 5 times, indicating very strong sell-off and negative sentiment in the market with the stock. Now, apart from these breakout stocks, there are high potential of high odds of Sun TV getting into ban list tomorrow and JNFC coming out of the ban list. So keep an eye on the stocks.
Stocks, whether they enter the ban or come out of that will be interesting to track. But what else is happening in the market? Well, of course, Voltas is one stock which is doing quite well. PSU stocks are off the highest point of the trading session, but a lot of earnings which are lined up as well. Hero MotoCorp, of course, we talked about. There's also Apollo Hospitals, which is expected to come out with numbers. Shrishti, why don't you begin by talking to us about Apollo Hospitals, and then we can discuss Hero MotoCorp as well?
Well, certainly, this time Apollo Hospitals is expected to slate good numbers because across all the parameters we are expecting a good jump. Firstly, let's talk about the revenue. Then that's expected to show a growth of 15% on a YY basis. 5,095 crores is what we are expecting on that front. The EBITDA is expected at 673 crores, and the margins are also expected to see an improvement from 11.5% in Q1 of FY24. This time the expectation is of 13.2%, and that will be some basis point of improvement on a sequential basis as well. And lastly, on the profit figure, 286 crores is our assumption. That's about the numbers, but let's talk about the factors that could be driving this particular growth. So this time across, because of the increased occupancy, the numbers are expected to show a jump, because for their hospital business, we are expecting a 13% sales growth on a YOY basis. If we talk about their health corporations, that too is expected to show a substantial jump, because their AHLL division is expected to register a 10% growth in the revenues and a 2 times growth in the EBITDA is what we are expecting. So all in all cylinders firing is what we can see for Apollo Hospitals this time around. And lastly, on the management commentary, we will be watching out for how the transition and the turnaround is happening for 24/7. And the company did announce that they're going to be making out some new acquisitions, and they are undergoing some of the capex as well. So what's the update on that front? We will be watching out for that.
Shrishti, what is it that one can expect from Hero MotoCorp?
Well, Hero MotoCorp too is expected to show a good growth this time around, because do remember there has been a 13% jump in the volumes on a YOY basis. The company did take a lot of price hikes, and even the product mix for Hero MotoCorp all in all has seen an improvement, because the share of the premium bikes was seen to be increasing in the quarter gone by. If we talk about their revenue, we are expecting a jump of 10% on a quarter-on-quarter basis. 10,477 crores is what we are expecting. EBITDA expected at 1,555 crores, and the margins also expected to see an improvement to 14.8% this time around. And do remember that across all these companies, be it Bajaj Auto, TVS Motors, they have seen improvement, and similar is the expectation from Hero MotoCorp as well. And lastly, on the profit figure, we are expecting 1,184 crores. But apart from the management, the kind of numbers that the company could be posting, we will be watching out for the management commentary on how the competition is building up, how are they seeing the demand outlook, especially in the rural market, and some of the key launches that are lined up for Hero MotoCorp. We will be watching out for that. Back to you.
Right, we'll leave it at that. Shrishti, thanks for flagging off Apollo Hospitals as well as Hero MotoCorp's earnings expectations. But Anand, just wanted to get you in here. I mean, lots happening within the two-wheeler pack, right? Especially now with Ola's debut as well as a listed entity. Wanted to understand, where do your preferences lie within the two-wheeler pack?
Well, as I just mentioned a while back, that it is still a sector which is struggling to increase volumes beyond the previous peak. And at the same time, there is enough of a technology disruption that is happening there. And whatever we have seen of consumer growth, most of it is happening now in terms of the higher end vehicles, especially because if you look at what's happening in cars, for example, much of the growth is coming through SUVs, not so much the lower priced vehicles or the sedans. So if you keep that context in mind, if there is a certain increase in rural demand, you would expect to see some volume increase coming in two-wheelers. But by and large, that may actually happen in motorcycles, which are perhaps a little more powerful than the baseline entry, because I think by and large the preferences seems to be shifting towards that kind of thing. And while I don't expect EVs to be very popular in the rural areas, one could be surprised. So you have to keep in mind that hybrids and all these things will actually shake up the market quite substantially. In that kind of context, it's difficult to pick winners at an early stage, which is where we are, and therefore it is better to either take a basket approach or perhaps, given the valuations where they are, leave that sector out, because it is not very clear who will be the survivor and the market leader going forward.
Taken time now to take the BTST trades from our charters then. Naresh, you go first.
So first would be a buy on HDFC AMC on verge of a breakout here. Stop loss at 4170, target price of 4260. Second is a buy on Cipla, knocking at that 1600 mark, which is a resistance. Stop loss at 1575, target price of 1640.
Taken Sony, what about you? What are the top BTST trades that you would want to recommend?
Aisha will continue with Exide Industry as also BTST trade recommendation at the same stop loss and target as well. The second fresh recommendation would be in HAL, which is looking like it's holding on to a support of 4680 for now. Also keeping a stop loss of 4680 and a target of 4800 can be seen. Now 4800 is a level of resistance. If it's able to cross that resistance, you can see an extended target towards 4850, 4860 as well. However, the first target is to be maintained at 4800.
Coming in as far as some of these BTSC trades are concerned, just taking stock of where we are ending the market, or at least perhaps near to that 24,360 thereabouts is where we're going to close the trading session. Not sure whether it will be a bit of a green or a red, because right now we're just flip-flopping between those lines. Nifty Bank holding in the green right now. Inox Wind has finally managed to be locked in upper circuit now, so 20% gain there. Rail Vikas Nigam has managed to chug along very nicely. Voltas, Glenmark Life, Jubilant Food, V-Guard, Amara Raja Batteries, these are some of your top gainers right now. On the losing side, Sun TV, Balkrishna Industries, Bharat Dynamics, Aster DM, etc. in the red. And LIC, interestingly, is down 5%. I thought that 20% growth that we saw in premium was pretty much okay, but looks like Street was penciling in much more, because it's taken a knock of almost 5% right now. Anand, wanted your take regarding some of these, names like Jubilant Food. It's been disappointing for last many quarters. In fact, Voltas too, for that matter, had been disappointing for last many quarters. And suddenly in Q1, there is a bit of a comeback of sorts for Jubilant Food with that 3% like-for-like growth, and for Voltas, a solid 67% volume growth.
Well, yeah, for Jubilant, like much of the QSR space, the same store sale growth has been very anemic. This quarter, they did report slightly better numbers, and therefore, to that extent, I think the market has been somewhat pleasantly surprised. How long it will sustain and whether they'll be able to take care of the local competition that is obviously eating into their biggest brands is an issue. I don't think they have done much with many of the other brands like Dunkin' Donuts, etc., which they have, potentially the ability to increase. Frankly, I'm not sure culturally we are a donut eating country. So there again, you will be actually finding it difficult to find reasons to grow. But overall, I think, this is a space which has been somewhat challenged. And again, trades at 80, 90, 100 times earnings. So it's not particularly cheap either. I don't know whether there is too much, unless you see a sustained SSG growth again coming through, which is what they had delivered for several years in the past. If they can go back to that, then certainly there'll be some interesting things happening there. Otherwise, their international portfolio can possibly sustain some of the growth going forward. Voltas, again, it flatters to deceive. I don't think that there is any, obviously the best season in terms of ACs, for example, is now behind us. And for the next few quarters, there is going to be a bit of an issue in terms of that particular segment of growth. So the current year has been fairly bad, and the numbers that you are seeing are actually for that segment of the quarter that went past, which has obviously been fantastic in terms of the demand for ACs, etc. So I don't know whether we are going to be able to see this kind of sustained growth rate. And I would be somewhat circumspect again in terms of jumping onto the bandwagon now.
Interesting take there, Anand. Good to get in that viewpoint, but good to have you on the show as well. Soni, Naresh, we let you guys as well go on that note. Closing in absolutely flat for the day for the index, but really a lot has happened since morning up until now, and a lot of individual stocks seeing a bit of tug of war out there. So let me hand it over to Snehi Shah and get in details of how the closing trades have been.
Absolutely. Well, let's take a look at what the closing trades are looking like as of now. Nifty looking to be absolutely flat as of now. Slight bit in the red is where Nifty is. That's your Nifty 50 heat map. Most of these Nifty 50 companies ending the day in the red. You also have on the flip side some companies in the green. Largely majority of these companies are ending the day in the red. Let's shift focus then and talk about some other indices in today's trade. Sensex also absolutely flat moves coming in for the Sensex today. There you have it. There's Nifty on the screen for you. Sensex also absolutely flat. Let's quickly pull up a Nifty Bank. Last I checked, Nifty Bank in green. There you have it. Rather flat, but in the green nonetheless. India VIX though has cooled off significantly from the 7 and 8% levels. Now only to 3 and somewhere between 3.5. There you have it. 3.7% rise coming in on India VIX as well. Let's quickly pull up some top gainers today on the Nifty. Pull up an ONGC, Hero Moto, Axis Bank, Infosys. All of this are your Nifty top gainers today. On the flip side, NTPC. And we have to talk about the Adani group of companies. Some recovery being seen on that front. But well, yes, they were under quite some pressure over the course of the day. There you have it. Adani Enterprises 1.5%. Adani Ports 2.5% lower. Lots of action coming in on Adani companies. Adani Power as well. Adani Green though, however, ending the day in the green. Let's also quickly take a look at all the sectoral indices that were in focus today. Nifty Realty, your top gainer in today's trade, 1.5% higher is where Nifty Realty is at, followed by Nifty Metal, Nifty IT, Nifty Bank and Pharma nominally in the green. But on the flip side though, biggest loser today, Nifty Media, Nifty PSU Banks under a lot of pressure coming today. And you also have Nifty FMCG and Energy as well as Auto. All of these have ended the day in the red. Now when you take a look at the real estate pack, you have Lodha, Mahindra Life, Prestige, Oberoi Realty, Suntech. All of these stocks have done pretty well for themselves today. Let's quickly pull up some other buzzers in today's trade. Let's talk about Trent, because that stock had a lot of brokerage notes coming in the stock today. Good moves coming in for Trent as well today, up more than 1.5% higher. Jubilant Food also good set of numbers, positive brokerage notes coming in for Jubilant Food as well. Let's quickly pull that up. 8% uptick coming in on Jubilant Food as well. We also had a negative note coming in for Global Health, so if you could pull that and see how the stock has recovered, if at all, today. You had Aavas Financiers that was in focus. Credit Axis Grameen also in focus. Lots to watch out for on that front as well. So well, guess that's how actually we're shutting shop for the day. Nifty absolutely flat at 24,345, not doing much, and much lower than the levels that we had actually reached today of 24,400 and above. But well, yes, 24,345.8. That's why we're shutting shop for the day.